All right, hello everyone. You're listening to Castbitten, a Dungeon Synth podcast, and I'm the host Trev. And today we've got Toni, the creator behind Runesong, on the show. So Runesong just recently released their debut album called For the Forgotten Spirit, which has been really successful and really well received in these first couple weeks. And to me, it's just an excellent release. So you just heard the fourth track off of it, and that's titled Inn of the Last Gnome. And it's very fun and energetic and equal parts playful and exciting with a lot of neat melodies bouncing around in your head. And it's great. I really love it. So yeah, thanks so much for hopping on, Toni. I'm really glad to have you here.
I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. So first off, one thing that I noticed about this album, it seems like it has a very tight conceptual backing to it, and you explained that a little bit in the notes. It seems like you had a pretty firm idea in your mind of the ideas that you wanted to express, things kind of surrounding ideas like returning to your roots or reconnecting with your past self. If I'm accurate there, do you mind just kind of stating your overall thought process with those concepts as we start here?
Yeah, sure. So I think even before I started to make the songs, I had this idea of um, I was listening a lot of dungeon synth and related music, and I felt that there were many albums that had similar like themes and vibes that I have been enjoying when I was a kid, like, and maybe not finding them from music back
Mm-hmm.
then. Like there was some metal albums and stuff like that that kinda uh, were what I was looking for, but not enough in that. Uh, so when I got deeper in the dungeon synth, uh, it felt really much like coming back to that place where I was when I was much younger, like reading all those fantasy books and playing role
Yeah.
playing games and listening to some power metal and black metal and so on. So when I started to make those songs, um, I had this like feeling or um, realization that um, that I can just I can do whatever I want as far long as I'm like direct and true about it what I'm doing. So I started to explore those um, themes and melodies that have been in my head for a long time. And
Yeah.
uh,
That's got to be a cool realization to get into the genre and see like you said you can really do whatever you want, and if something's in your head you can express it how you'd like.
yeah, I've been listened to like many genres during the years and made music in many genres, and um, but I think there's something really unique in dance and synth and related genres that um, let the people who are making the music just do what they want, and most of the time everyone is really receptive and just wants to hear more of what they're doing.
Yeah,
So
totally. What was it like thinking back to a lot of these things that were important and relevant when you were younger and trying to I guess express those ideas through the mindset of your adult version of yourself?
hmm, I'd say that um, so it has been like a bit longer process for me to get back those roots, not just this musical side, but maybe past 3 or 4 years. Um, I lived in a bigger city for 12 years, or two cities actually, but 12
Okay.
years. And when I was kid, I was living either in like really small town or in a forest. And so 4 years back, we moved with my family back to like, well, yeah, we lived in the forest for a while. and then like outskirts of a village. So during the last 4 years, I've been getting back to those. Uh, I'd say like mindset or
Yeah.
um, there's this word in Finnish called sielunmaisema, which is like the view of the soul, which means like the place that is in, like when you're looking at some place and that's inside you, that place. So
Oh,
like getting back to
can you
that.
say that word again? What is it?
Um, sielunmaisema.
Oh man, I love something like that, like a really specific concept with a word that doesn't directly translate to
Yeah,
English.
I think there might be some concept in English, but I can't remember now. But yeah,
Yeah,
anyways.
that
So
makes sense though. If you're living in a place like that that has all these memories, it kind of brings out that part of you.
yeah, though this place we are now living it isn't the same place I was living as a kid, but it's kind of similar. So
Right,
lots of
right.
forest and water and not many people.
After
So
living in both, which do you feel like is better for your creative process? Do you like being away from things in nature?
it's hard to say because at that time I was living in the city was um, also really important for my creative process, like meeting different people and like seeing what they are doing, learning stuff from them, and making music. And so I don't think I couldn't have done this album without those years living in the city first.
Yeah,
So
that's a really valid point.
so yeah, I think that process that started a few years back and kind of culminated in this album in many ways. So I was you asked if uh, how I would compare this to
Hmm.
that when I was kid. Uh, Now I can like look at those things and see what they mean to me and uh, what are like the building blocks of some feelings or um, ideas or imagination, like these concepts. And I think that really helps uh, to actually create something out of it, not just like be in that space, but go to that space and then come out of it with things you can use for music and other things.
Oh, that's too cool. It's really exciting to hear that reflection can have such an impact on making music.
Yeah, definitely.
I know, kind of along the lines of you talking about where you were living impacting the lens you see things. So we've been friends for a little while now online, which has been great, and I've seen a ton of pictures of Finland from you. Stuff like really intense snow and ice, or even just a bunch of saunas. It seems like you've got dozens of saunas in your life. I was wondering what role your Finnish roots kind of have in general. Maybe less specific about your childhood and more about like culturally how Finland affects your approach to your art, if that has a significant effect at all, from the weather to the culture.
Hmm. That's a good question, and I think it's a bit harder to answer in a way because it's just something.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Um,
Is it a
for
little
this,
more subconscious, maybe?
yeah, for this project, I don't think there's like much Finnish in the actual like music. There's more of like maybe Celtic and
Right.
general Northern European stuff.
That makes sense. You cited European folk music as a
Yeah,
musical influence.
and Finnish music tradition is a bit different from like Western Europe or Southern Europe. Um,
Okay.
of course, there's a lot of like back and forth between cultures here as well. So, but um, I think musically the biggest thing is probably this. Um, there's particular melancholy in Finnish music that I
I
think
see.
it's at not least that same like way you can see it in other European folk music. It's a bit more close like to the Eastern European music, I think.
Okay,
And
that makes sense.
so in this album, you can't really hear that much of that. Maybe in the two songs, like the third one, once this was a familiar place. There's a
Oh,
little bit
even in
of
the
that.
title, there's some of that wistful melancholy.
Yeah, and so, but in general, in my like, I think that has an effect to me, which then uh, informs how I make things. Like,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, and the fact that like here there isn't many people, and there's a lot of like spaces that are really open, but at the same time they can be very like not crowded. But if you go in the forest, you are there's it's easy to go from really open to place to really closed place.
I
And
see what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I think that's one thing I use a lot in my music, like that. Trying to create those open spaces, and then also these very like intimate and close.
Oh
And
man, that I totally know what you mean visually and musically. What you're talking about those open things contrasting with the denser sections, and with you saying that, I can absolutely think of your songs and associate that, especially your first track, how it starts somewhat open and gets denser and denser, and then maybe around like the 3 minute mark or so, it really opens up, and there's some far fewer melodies and some swishy atmospheric stuff in the background. That absolutely captures the physical idea that you just mentioned.
yeah, of course, that's not something that's only in Finland, but when
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
thinking about, yeah, so mm, yeah, it's hard question to answer for sure.
Yeah, sure. That's very conceptual.
Mm.
And
um,
it kind of goes in line with maybe your description on Bandcamp. It's playful melodies and wistful tunes from forgotten ruins and snow-covered forest, which
yeah,
it's great, and that
so,
really works with this consistent musical feel that you have throughout the album.
yeah,
Uh,
that's good to
yeah,
hear.
it's
Thanks.
just lovely.
I have some. Well, when I started to make those songs originally, I've like I think I spent 2 or 3 months just coming up with different kind of ideas, and after that, I just picked the songs that felt like the most coherent with each other. So
Okay.
I was just yesterday um, looking back those other ideas, and there's this one probably gonna be an album which it's probably much more closer to the actual Finnish landscape, like winter synth stuff. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah,
So that was kind of something in my notes that you at least partially touched on there. I was curious if from the start you were drawn to this like the playful, wistful, melancholy kind of sound that you say is throughout this album.
Hmm.
Was that like the intention as you're creating all the songs, or was it more that you would start creating the song, and if it captured that feeling, then you would set it aside for this release?
Yeah, I'd say definitely the latter.
Okay.
I think the harp that's actually there's like two harps I'm using, and um, I think they pretty much like directed that playful melodies. I just started to play with them, and those kind of melodies just were coming up all the time. So
Yeah.
in a way, it was the sound that made that.
Yeah, that totally makes
Yeah.
sense.
So
Kind of. Oh no, please
yeah,
go
yeah.
on.
Go on, go on.
So something that you cited earlier, uh, believe you've mentioned some metal music being
Mm.
like a more technical musical influence here, as well as European folk music. And then looking online, I saw that you also cited medieval songs as well as CRPG soundtracks.
Mm.
I guess in general, can you kind of talk more in detail about the technical musical influences, the less conceptual ideas, and more like the folk music that you're citing, the metal music that inspires these songs, things like that.
Yeah. So I'd say most of like the medieval and folk stuff is actually um, from like modern interpretation of those things, like
Sure,
pseudo
yeah,
medieval and stuff like that, and of course soundtracks that have from games and movies that have
right.
those vibes. But I've been listening to actual medieval uh, stuff a lot as well. So,
Really?
but I didn't have like this idea that I have to follow those traditions or anything. So
Right, yeah.
just one of the influences there.
Just
Um,
as a point of interest, do you mind pausing there and maybe comparing and contrasting the what you would call an actual medieval times tune versus something that's more of a modern interpretation of medieval music, since you've studied up a little bit on it?
mm, I'm not too
I don't know
keen
if
on
that's tough to
setting like
articulate.
yeah. So if I want to be really strict, I'd say only stuff that has been written in medieval times is like actual medieval songs. But I'd guess
Right.
people who have actually studied those songs and then followed that tradition very closely, I'd consider them as well. And then the more pseudo medieval stuff is songs you can hear in like um, well, a lot of Dungeon Synth has that kind of things, I think, and
Yeah.
lot of soundtracks for games. And when you go to YouTube and search for like uh, role playing game backing tracks, you get those.
Right.
Which
Yeah,
like
there's definitely a difference there between what I guess from media what we associate with medieval times versus what they were actually doing back then.
yeah, and I like them both really much. Like there's of course there's a lot of like back and forth between not back and forth but similar things, but they both have like their places. And I'd say I listen more to the more pseudo medieval stuff. But
Sure, yeah. I think that's typical for the genre.
yeah, but one of biggest influences of mine is Dead Can Dance, and they have a lot of songs that are really into that actual medieval and later traditions of Western music,
Okay.
and also like world music. And I'd say they are one of the biggest influences in general. Hard to say how much in this album, but
Yeah, just
yeah,
as more like a fundamental thing for you.
yeah,
I wasn't familiar with them. I just gave them a quick Google, and
yeah.
I can
Uh,
see it being relevant. It's kind of talking about neoclassical and ambient world and all of that.
Yeah, and I think they're pretty influential in like dance and synth as well, like for those
Yeah.
early '90s artists. And
Okay, I can totally see that. What about these CRPG soundtracks? Forgive me if I'm out of the loop, but I don't think that I know enough about the genre to have the right thing come to mind. Can you talk a little bit about how about what that musical influence looks like?
yeah, no, for me, I think games like Neverwinter Nights, Morrowind, and of course the later Elder Scrolls
Okay.
soundtracks, and um, Final Fantasy 7 and 8 were really big for me when I was a kid. And I think those soundtracks were the first one I really fell in love with, and like actually got that okay, games can have these really great
Yeah.
music.
Yeah, totally.
And some older as well, like um, there was this. Nintendo game called Ghost and Goblins, which was really really super hard, but I still can hear it music in my head like it was yesterday. So,
Yeah, I feel like hard games you end up repeating the same thing so much that you
mm,
really like internalize the soundtrack sticks with you.
yeah, that game is actually I've never played it through, but I watched the YouTube video once, and
Oh, really?
when you get at the end and you have to kill Satan, and when you kill when you kill him, he's just okay. This was just a dream, and then you have to go back and do it again. And I can just
That's
imagine people throwing the Nintendos to the wall after that one.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
But yeah,
Yeah, so I can totally see how that would kind of get added into the pot of musical influences.
mm.
I don't
And
know, bring it out there.
one of like recent ones is Hollow Knight. I really
Oh
love that
yeah,
soundtrack, and
the soundtrack's so good for Hollow
yeah,
Knight.
and I think it has some influence on this album. Maybe not like really direct or something I can pinpoint,
Yeah.
but um, um, I think the Winter Synth album I mentioned gonna be much more influenced by that.
Oh, I can
So
absolutely see that. And Hollow Knight's probably a good example of one that's hard enough that you end up repeating parts and hearing soundtracks again. But it's good. The soundtrack's so good there.
yeah, it's really good. Sometimes I've just listened to the Green Path song for like loop on YouTube while working.
Yeah. Can you kind of get a little more into that, into your maybe media influences? So things
Hmm.
that aren't you're not citing musically, but I know that you describe your music at least partially as fantasy music. So I imagine, like these CRPGs, a lot of fantasy media kind of comes into play.
Yeah, actually, now
Yeah.
that you said that, I can get back to that other question about those Finnish influences.
Oh,
So,
sure. Yeah.
growing up, uh, I think there was a lot of these old Finnish like tales and myths around me, like my grandparents telling them and other people and in school. So there's all kinds of spirits that live in nature and in
Ooh.
people houses and saunas and so on. And like every lake and river and like part of lake has one their own spirit, and even like bigger trees could have their own spirits and so on. So that was like my the very Finnish landscape of my childhood. And
Yeah, that's so interesting.
so um, I think those themes are um, in the music as well. And um, then if I'd go to the your actual question, um, my grandma read Hobbit for me when I was I think 5 or 6
Oh,
years, and oh, actually, the reason why she read it to me was that I've seen the old Lord of the Rings animation from 1978, I
oh yeah,
think, the Bakshi one with rotoscopic animation, and uh, it it had like really big influence back then on me. I watched it many times, and
yeah,
it's really scary movie in a way. There's the orcs and Nazguls are
yeah.
much more scarier in that one than in the Jackson movie. I still think it has maybe a little bit better atmosphere than the later movies.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the newer ones are much better, of course. Well, not of course, but yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
then my um, aunt gave the Hobbit for me that hey, you should read this one. It's from like the same movie or so. So,
Yeah.
but I I didn't read that well at that time. So my grandma read it to me, and yeah, after that, um, um, yeah, I think I fell in love to fantasy and reading with
Yeah,
that
The
book.
Hobbit specifically had a pretty big
Yeah,
impact on that.
and
Especially the way you're describing it, having it like orally read to you out
yeah,
loud. That's got to be a pretty special situation.
it was, and it was kind of cool to read it a few years later because
Oh,
it
I
felt
bet.
really different book when I was reading it myself. Like I
Yeah,
didn't remember this happening at all, and I thought
yeah.
that this was in if different places and so on. So it almost feels like there's been two different books.
Sure, that's kind of nice. I got to do that honestly. I have such a. It's been a long time. I have such a vague recollection of what happens in The Hobbit.
Mm,
That would be a fun reread. Kind of like you said. I'm sure I'm misremembering
yeah,
like half the story at this point.
it's a great book. We read it with my kid a few years back. So
Oh, that's great.
and there was this other book as well. Um, I have to quickly Google what it's in English.
Oh, go for it. No
So
worries.
it was about this like maybe Stone Age Europe. Um, it was fiction, but
Hmm.
um, and my grandma was reading. I don't know if it was before the Hobbit or after it.
Hmm.
Mm, Reindeer Moon.
Oh, I'm not interested. Or I'm
It,
not aware. I'm interested in.
yeah, it's by Elizabeth Marshall Thomas and Reindeer Moon. It came out in uh, 87.
Wow.
So my grandma was reading it, and I wanted. Well, I don't remember this, but she said that I um, ask ask her to read it to me, and so it was about these Stone Age people trying to
Yeah.
survive, and that has had also like big impact on me. I've always loved like prehistory and the
Yeah, I
myths.
can imagine that. And is
So
is reading fantasy and in prehistory and old world literature, is that still something that's a big part of your life now?
yeah, so um, I used to read a lot fantasy and sci-fi and horror and other books
Yeah.
as well, um, but I kind of stopped in a way when I was maybe 16 or so. I did read, but not nearly as much, and
Yeah.
so that was one of the things I've been also doing again in these past few years, getting back to that, reading a lot more. And um, but back when I was like 10, 12, 14, my favorite books were Dragonlance books and uh, Wheel of Time and
Oh
some
yeah.
Stephen King books like The Dark Tower and
Sure, yeah.
uh, what else? Mm, well, I'd say the most influential book when I was a little bit older, maybe 11 or 12, was the Farsi Trilogy by Robin Hobb.
Oh, okay.
And
I am familiar with those. I haven't
uh,
read them though.
yeah, um, it's one of those books that I've like grown up with because back then there was only one trilogy, and then there's been more, and I've been reading them
Oh,
like year after
yeah,
year.
that's
So it's been like 20 years now, and
nice.
it's still, yeah, I'd say she's probably my favorite author of all time.
Oh,
Uh,
excellent.
or At the Tide with Terry Pratchett. So those Discworld books are also
Okay.
one of the bigger influences as well. And
So to kind of pivot from there, thinking about other things from your past that have kind of affected the music coming out now. I know that you've mentioned you've written in a lot of other genres before making this genre. I think specifically you've cited like electronic music, for example,
yeah,
and yeah, even earlier when we were talking in the pre-show, you mentioned that you were doing like a live audio type of job. I guess can you kind of just go over your general background as a musician, I'm always interested in what leads up to people making an album.
Yeah, so I will meander a bit. um,
Oh, absolutely. Meandering
so
well.
originally, I fell in love with metal. Um, I think that was when I was 10 or 11. Um,
Okay.
so I had friends who had like big brothers and sisters who were metalheads, and they always looked so cool with their clothing and big hair and stuff like that. And so I think it's the music came from there. And
Definitely.
like the first bands I listened a lot were Nightwish and Blind Guardian, which is like fantasy power speed metal. Um, and I started playing guitar because of those bands as well.
Oh,
So
really?
that was like my first uh, foray in music making. And
And you're pretty young there, right? You said you're like 10 or 12.
yeah, but I think I was maybe 13 when I started playing. So
Okay.
but yeah, I was really, really into metal, just trying to find every possible album, which was hard because I lived in a small town and the nearest like good record shop was 100 kilometers away.
Oh
So
man, what do you do in that case? How do you
uh,
find new music?
there was pretty good library at our town, so I spent
Oh,
lot of
cool.
time there. There wasn't too many metal albums there, but few, like the Blind Guardian, I originally find there. It was the Nightfall in Middle Earth album, so I didn't know anything
Oh.
about the band, but of course I saw this uh, Tolkien thing.
Yeah,
I
you see
just
Middle
picked it
Earth.
up, and I didn't like it that much first, but I just
Oh.
went again, and then loaned it. And after like week or two, I was listening it all the time. So library, and then I had a lot of friends who also got into metal at the same time. So they had some old albums, and even sometimes we could get one from their like big sisters or brothers, but usually they didn't want to give them as little ones.
Sure, yeah.
and um, and then maybe one or two friend had like first actual internet connection with a CD burner, so we could get few tracks from there. And then there was this really good radio show every Sunday. So I sometimes recorded those songs on C cassette.
Oh, cool.
And
A metal radio show?
yeah,
Oh, that's
uh,
too cool.
yeah, and the dude who ran it, um, he had this really official style of speaking and doing the show. Like it was really funny.
That's funny.
And yeah, so from there I got some really good bands. And um, then later on, maybe when I was 14 or 15, I started to like listen to other kinds of music, like classic rock, Cream and Led Zeppelin,
Yeah.
uh, and we started to play those songs with some friends really badly, but it was fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's about right.
and I think around that same time, I also got uh, internet in my home and uh, found out about like these forums, like some metal forums and IRC, the original
Yeah.
like chat
Wow.
thing. So I from there I got into electronic music. There was some people who sent me songs like you have to listen to this, and this was a little bit before the whole EDM thing became so big.
Right.
So it was a bit different at the time. Bands like Spongler and Portishead and Massive Attack, which are these,
Mm.
if you don't know them, they are like these slow, melancholy, very moody songs.
Okay.
So, and that has, of course, I found there's like some connection between those bands and some dungeon synth with the atmospheres and how they make the
Sure. Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
And
There's maybe more overlap than people give credit between
yeah,
the
definitely.
genres.
And uh, of course, one thing that connects those more electronic uh, acts is ambient.
Right.
So
Yeah. That's a got to be a big bridge there.
yeah, definitely. And so yeah, and then there's Boreal. I think we have maybe talked about
Hmm.
Boreal. I'm not sure.
I think that
So
it's come up in the chat before.
yeah, so his second album is, I think it's one of the most influential albums in general for the past 15 years. It's 16 years when it was released. It's really unique and just steeped in atmosphere and
Yeah.
different than anything else that was before or even after that. So uh, I think if there's one uh, electronic album that could be like in interest of many Dungeons and fans, that
Yeah.
would be it.
Maybe that's pretty fundamental.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so yeah, and at that time I also started to make songs in computer. Like first I had this software called Guitar Pro, and so I just used my guitar to come up with some simple things and write them at the tablature editor in the software.
H- How were
And
they thinking back onto them now?
uh,
Those first tracks.
like I think they were in a way really good. Of course, they were really
Really?
bad, but but
That's a nice answer. I think a
yeah,
lot of people are embarrassed of stuff like that.
yeah. The songs I made like afterwards, maybe like a year or two afterwards, were really bad. But those first ones,
Oh,
I think there was some magic there. But
yeah,
sadly, I've lost them like long ago.
that's funny. Oh man.
So
Yeah, any of the first stuff I made when I was first trying out like workstations in college is just not even worth thinking about. So bad.
yeah, but yeah, if anyone listening ever you start to make music, always back up the first ones. You want to listen to them
Yeah.
later on, even if they're bad.
Yeah, that's good advice.
But yeah, one really cool thing about making music back then was that there really wasn't any like content um, to learn from in a way. Of course, you had the software manuals and um, stuff like that, but there wasn't like you couldn't go in YouTube and just find
Yeah.
tutorial for Ableton or making Dungeon Synth or whatever genre. You just
Right, that's so different.
yeah, so uh, that made it. Um, I feel now kind of same way as back then. Um, like I said before, that with Dungeon Synth, I feel I can just do whatever. And when I first started to make music,
Oh,
it was like that because I was just
yeah.
like having fun and making music for myself and maybe some few friends to listen to.
That's a cool association to find in that.
Yeah, um, and also because you really can't find that much Dungeons and related tutorials or stuff
Hmm.
like that. So you just have to listen to the music and do it, which is
And
the best way to learn, I think.
yeah, it's so interesting to me to hear stories like yours of how you evolved through genres because like for myself, I grew up with the internet but before streaming,
Mm.
so maybe it's not as easy as it is now to find new stuff, but you certainly didn't have to go 100 kilometers to the record store or record Sunday radio shows. And it's almost nice. Like maybe I'm very much romanticizing it, but
Yeah,
the
I think
limited access is cool to me. It's really interesting to imagine growing up with that.
yeah, I know I romanticize it as well. And I was like at the end of that period in many ways because
Yeah,
it didn't take too long before I had the access to all music ever made.
eventually. Right,
So
right.
one thing about the time before that was that like I might have like 10 CDs, and I knew them like back of my hand. I just
Right.
like
Yeah.
listen to them every day and read those booklets from the CDs.
Yeah. The
So
booklets were nice. I would keep them for a
yeah,
car ride.
and
Like I'd have a long ride to school, so I'd flip through my
yeah,
CD booklets.
definitely. And I love to read those lyrics, and I think a lot of my I really didn't learn English in school, even though we started at third grade. But from like listening to those music and reading lyrics, and uh, then from games, of course, and then
Yeah,
later
that's
from
so
internet.
cool.
So in many ways, I'm much more better at like writing and reading in English than talking, because I just done it so much compared to
That totally
speaking.
makes sense. Yeah.
And there's like many words I really can't pronounce right because I just read them from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
nobody gets upset at a
mm,
genuine try like that. That's
yeah,
a It's a cool way to learn about a language though, through direct exposure. Like I feel like music's probably more in touch with the culture behind a language than reading in a classroom. So
yeah, definitely.
that's gonna be an interesting one.
And yeah, one funny thing is that I've always have like quite big vocab in fantasy related stuff, and compared to like normal things.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but yeah, when I got access to like, or better access to music, little like before the streaming, but after like good internet and all
Mhm.
those places you could just go and uh, meet these pirate people and
Yeah,
so on. So I just
of
like
course.
started to listening to everything I could get my hands into, like every possible
Yeah,
genre, and I read about every genre, and spent many years doing that. And so there's so much influence from all kinds of
yeah.
genres, and the I'd say the years between when I was maybe 16 to 26 was like that time of like expansion in many ways, like musically and reading and like moving to a city. So, and that expansion of influences kind of made me forget the earlier stuff, the fantasy and
That's a
metal, and
lot going on at once.
yeah. So during those years, I made a lot of different kind electronic music. I didn't finish that much stuff. I was just like fumbling around and
Mhm.
uh, trying different things. Mostly more like chill out and ambient stuff, but
Yeah.
some rave music as well. And for a few years, I was frequenting different kind of like electronic parties, underground
Yeah.
parties.
Oh,
In
that's
Finland,
cool.
we have these like, of course, there's in other places as well, but forest parties. Like people just go in some
I don't know
place,
if we
and
have those where I'm
I know
from.
you have them, but they're really like underground thing usually.
Interesting.
So
And it's what it sounds like. It's people go
yeah,
out into the forest and
like people set up
jam
PA
out.
PA system in a forest,
Yeah.
and there might be like some old cottage or something like that, and usually they set up. Well, the parties I mostly gone to. There some mm, there are like groups who
Hmm.
do different things. Some do the sound systems and maybe play music, and then the people who make like visual stuff. And
Oh yeah.
usually those forest parties are like combination of different teams just coming together, and so
That's
uh,
nuts. That's so cool.
yeah, and the music is really well. Usually they're like I'm rambling here, but there are like two stages. One is for dancing, and the music was usually quite fast and energetic, and during the night it's really dark and like
Yeah.
demon summoning stuff, and so on. And then during like morning and day, it's more groovy and like fun.
So this
It
isn't
might
just a one night
uh,
thing. This is kind of an event.
when it's forest, it's usually weekend, and the
Wow,
music is
nice.
non-stop.
Oh
And
my
then
god.
then usually is like other stage, maybe in a tent or a cottage or something. It's like chill
Yeah,
out stage, and then there's more like so these parties I mostly have gone. There's like psychedelic music is in front, like
sure.
psytrance and goa trance, and maybe some techno and jungle as well. And then in the chill out, there's psybient and dub, like dub reggae and psy dub. And during the night, it's usually ambient and maybe some soundtracks and even classical stuff. And that was the stuff I liked the most. Just going at the chill out place.
Yeah. Oh my
And
god, that's got to be like nothing else.
yeah,
Super
and
unique.
they were usually um, decorated in like super awesome way. Like the main stage might be like let's say 30 meters to 30 meters, just some cool uh, things people built there, like really colorful, um, well, decorations and maybe faces of some spirits and like so. It's basically like
Yeah.
a fantasy forest.
Yeah, yeah. Were you ever part of the production putting these on, or were
Yeah.
you always just,
So
oh, okay.
so after
And what's
like
that
year
like?
after a year or two, I just got to know people and started to play like DJing
In
music
the
myself. And
forest party scene, you started
yeah,
getting in on it. Oh my
yeah,
god.
and sometimes at organizing or like helping at the organizing.
Yeah.
Uh, and some also in the city, like there might be some places with similar setup, but usually just one night. And we
Hmm.
have one really cool party at the lake when it was frozen over. And these people had done big dragons from snow, like maybe 20 meters long, and few 2-3 meters high dragons, and ice sculptures that were like uh, lighted up. And it was like perfect night,
Yeah.
maybe
On the lake,
minus,
that's
yeah,
so nice.
like maybe,
People will throw parties on the frozen lakes here, but it's not like an event. Like yours is like a
mm,
underground music festival. And
yeah,
out in the cold on the snow, that must be so neat, so fun.
yeah, it was the um, the front of the stage was like ice skating ring after a while.
That's
So,
cool.
but yeah, so yeah, I spent a lot of time in that scene, playing music and making music and just having good time. And
Yeah.
but
You feel like a lot of that kind of soaked into you on a fundamental level and
yeah, definitely,
influences
and
it. Yeah.
especially those forest parties, um, because that was like the biggest like link back to those old fantasy roots in a
Yeah.
way. And um, and the like experiences I had um, did have like um, impact on the music I'm making now. So,
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine that.
but yeah, the one getting back to that, what I
Yeah.
originally talked about about Dungeon Synth, um, because that kind of music is really like um, high production value. Like the software and tools are so good nowadays, and people are making so like really professional sound.
Yeah.
And one reason I had hard time like actually finishing stuff, because I was trying to make like everything. I was trying to build really good like actual songs, like the arrangements, and then
Right.
making them sound really good and powerful and so on. And it kind of burned me out. and but when I found Dungeon Synth, or like really got into it,
Yeah.
uh, it freed me to make just focus on the songs itself, like making just good tunes.
Right. There's no standards of
Yeah,
production
yeah,
quality.
and
Yeah, that's really freeing.
yeah, and um, when I started to make the songs and other songs, not just the ones that are on the album, I had this idea. Okay, I'm just gonna do some really lo-fi fantasy stuff, maybe few like tracks per song, and I won't spend too much time on them. Just do a
Right.
release and some draw some artwork and like that.
Yeah.
And well, it took almost half a year in the end.
Yeah, here we are with a big full album.
Yeah, but I'm really happy about that, because that original thought about making it like really simple, uh, I don't think I could do it without that like prompt at
Yeah.
the beginning. And so mm, yeah, so at some point I started to send some of those demos for people, and found about the Discord server we met,
Yeah.
and I dropped the song that's now the first song of the album there in the feedback, and got some really good feedback about it.
Yeah, I remember everyone checking it out and responding to it.
Yeah, so um, later on, I think even in that point I had this idea of keeping it simple, but at some point I was talking to our friend Elvilon, and I was yeah I sent the same song which I've been working on, and I sent it to him, and I said that okay, I think it's done now. Like maybe some minor tweaks, but it's
Hmm.
done now. And I was really like fed up with the song. Like I want to get I want to get it out,
Yeah.
and he was like, okay, yeah, it's great, but I know you can do more. You can make it better. And my first thought was like, no way, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that. But then I like, okay, he's right. That I know I can make it much
Nice to
better
get
than
pushed
this.
like that.
Yeah, and I think from that point forwards, I was um, there was also at some point this thought that since um, getting into the like scene at the server and otherwise, and meeting all these
Hmm.
wonderful people and talking about music with them and music making, I realized that there are people who will like what I'm making, and that kind of uh, gave me the um, from like before I was doing that music mostly for myself, just
Right.
enjoying the process and learning stuff and doing what I've learned before. And but when I realized that there's people who I like, and that I want to make music for them to listen to.
Yeah,
And
I know what you mean. It's
yeah,
inspiring. It's
yeah.
really exciting. It lights a fire.
So I think that thought and what Elyvilon said made me actually like put everything I have to these songs, and while of course keeping that not trying to get it too perfect, because I know that
Right.
if I'm trying
Yeah,
to make it too perfect, I won't finish it like never.
for sure. But, just taking it seriously and
Mm, yeah.
giving it all of the attention that you feel it deserves. It's important to, because I feel like when you're making music for fun, it's easy to not want to give 100%. And
Mm,
it's so nice to just get pushed into that and to really take it seriously. And then you have something forever that you know that it's the quality that it deserved, that you really put all of your effort into it. It helps it
yeah,
age better and be more exciting as it comes out.
definitely. And like during the years, I've released a bunch of songs, and always there's been either like, okay, this was a really fun process, and I did this song in like maybe day or two, and it's fun song, but it's not anything like special or too like
Yeah.
not quality song. Or there have been these songs that had really good ideas, and some ways I made them really good, but at the same time there was stuff missing from them.
Yeah.
And I felt after I finished them, I mostly felt like this relief of getting out of it.
I know what you mean for
Yeah.
sure.
So I think this album was the first time I was actually like making music, not just learning about making music. If that makes
Right.
any sense.
That's awesome. That's really great. And the reception has been so positive since it's come out. I feel like that really demonstrates how like giving 100% instead of 80 or 90% just goes such a long way.
Yeah, I've been really glad about how many people have liked it. Like,
Yeah.
it feels really special to me to like, yeah.
We've talked about the music a bunch, but earlier you mentioned thinking about cover art and I almost forgot to mention, but
Hmm.
your cover art's great and it really stands out within the genre, I think. I feel like it captures everything that a fan of the genre would want to see, but it still it doesn't seem like anything they've seen before, and that gives all sorts of positive ideas of what the music may be like and draws people in.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know personally you worked very hard on getting the cover art exactly how you wanted it, seeing like the original picture and then what it is now. It's been very diligent work.
yeah. I don't know if it's actually that much work I put into it, but um, I had a few different ideas about the cover, and
Hmm.
then I found the original illustration, which is from a book from 1920s, I think, and uh, from guy called Dugout Walker,
Right.
like so. And yeah, as you said, it's not something you usually see in
Yeah.
releases, but um, I think the illustration, the original one, is something. Well, it spoke to me. Like I think everyone who reads fantasy and listens to like imaginative music has
Hmm.
this own um, like what you would put it. Mm, like your own realm of fantasy in your head,
Yeah.
and it has all these different places and different like people and different teams and so on, and um, and that illustration is something that is big part of that my realm of fantasy, like a little bit of the usual.
I can see
um,
that. Yeah.
yeah.
It fits with your corner of it for sure.
Mm. So, and since the album is full of those like fun little melodies and stuff like that, it was felt perfect for it.
Yeah, it's a good match.
And yeah, and so I have the logo was made by Eluvilon, and it's so
Right.
really good. Like it
Yeah,
couldn't
such
be
a good
more
job.
perfect. And yeah, and
Like the small, I don't know the design words for it, but like the offsetting of the first half of the word from the second half of the word, and then all of the I don't know, intricate artsy details around the letters. It's
yeah,
super cool and it fits the fun folksy kind of style of the music.
yeah, I'm super thankful for him to made it for me.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah, Elevalon's great, just a monster in the sea. It's
yeah,
so good at so many things. He was helping me out with some stuff in GIMP the other day, just getting some details that would take me forever to teach myself.
mm, yeah.
Yeah,
So
so we're kind of starting to wrap up here. One thing that I like to ask before we end, I know earlier you mentioned having a lot of extra tracks that didn't necessarily fit this release, and some of them maybe feeling like a wintry kind of feel. Do you have a firm plan for what's next, either with Runesong or with any other project of your own?
Yeah, so actually, I'm gonna just quickly backtrack a bit because
Sure, yeah.
I just was thinking about something you said um, about when you like make um, give like 90 to 100% to the
Yeah.
music. Um, so it's so much like easier to actually uh, push that album out to people when you know it's actually like you have been like truthful about it, and you know
Oh, yeah.
like the value of the album. So
Yeah, it's easier to be sincere
yeah,
because
yeah,
you know you believe in it, you know?
yeah, because I don't like marketing that much. I don't like pushing to people, um,
Right.
but at the same time, I also want uh, that the music is out there. So uh,
Yeah, it's a fine line, like how much advertising and I don't know, selling, trying to like pitch yourself is okay. And
yeah,
I think that's a good point. When you know that you've put hard work into it, it feels more justified than I don't
definitely,
know if you were
yeah,
a little lazy. Maybe it's harder to feel okay with it.
yeah. And the reason why I wanted to say is this because I know that many people who are making this kind of music are uh, like maybe not shy, but reserved about like putting
Yeah,
themselves out. And so I really believe that when you are making the good music, you should uh, be a bit like not maybe pushy, but let people have the opportunity to find you with the
yeah, for
music.
sure.
And so
Yeah, I think that that's important and a little hard. Like you said, people can be shy, and
hmm,
it's hard to overcome that. But yeah, thinking of the work that you put into the album, and then kind of like using the connections you've made, and then just the outreach that you have available to you. It's nice to see the impact. Like I've got the Bandcamp page pulled up right now, and
hmm.
the reviews from the supporters are so nice. They're so cool. Just some of the stuff that people are saying is really great.
Yeah, it's so wild. I never could like believe half a year ago getting those responses. It's so
Oh, that's
I'm
awesome.
really thankful for everyone who has listened, took their time to listen and re- said something about it.
Yeah.
It's like yeah, something you couldn't just get from everything everywhere else.
Yeah, I
But
don't know if
yeah,
people realize how much the reviews mean. It's
mm,
incredible to read. I don't know, something written out like that just says so much more than having the listen number go up.
yeah, I've been trying to review albums myself much more lately.
Same here. It's hard to make yourself do it sometimes, but it
Yeah,
it feels good once you've done it, and I know it goes a long way for the
yeah,
musicians.
definitely. But yeah, so you asked about what's next. So um, for Runesong, I think I'm not gonna get back to it very soon. Like
Okay.
I actually have one song that's probably gonna be the first song on the album,
Uh huh.
but I made it. I made it actually before this album.
Wow.
But I
Wow, that's
yeah
wild.
yeah
Wow.
it feels like the perfect continuation from the last song in this album. So I don't know yet, but it might be the first song. But um, I think I wanna because for me when I was doing this album, I really didn't know what it was going to be like in like conceptually in many ways.
Hmm.
Or so now I know what it's about, or at least I know a little bit about what it's about, and
Yeah.
and it's a project with like needs uh, that like long time work to make it.
Right.
So for now, I think I want to make some songs that are not as like heavyweight in a way,
Yeah, I totally know what you mean.
like some really lo-fi, um, like sword and sorcery style
Yeah.
beeps and
Yeah, I
um,
think discovering the identity of a project is really fun, and then it gets you excited about things that are outside of the identity to do
yeah.
something totally different.
So
I've
I think
definitely experienced that.
I think in the coming months I'm gonna release one or two like side project stuff,
Nice. Ah, that's super fun to hear. That's exciting.
and there's also one or two collaboration ideas simmering as well.
Nice.
So, but right right now I'm still like coming down from that release. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think last week Joshua from Blade of Kino mentioned that he was letting himself take some time to enjoy a successful release.
yeah,
Yeah, it was nice to hear that. I think that's it's just healthy to hear that. I feel like it's so good to do that, and that's maybe a position that you're in right now, and
yeah.
it's something to savor.
I really loved his interview, and that was really good point. And
Yeah,
it, it's kind of I've been it feels a bit like not maybe shameful, but um, well, I can't find the right word, but I've been
I think I
listening.
know what you
I've
mean.
been listening to the album after the release,
Yeah,
and just because
yeah,
before the release I was like working with it. When I was
right.
listening to it, I was always thinking, okay, what I need to do next, what I have to like fix or come up. And
Yeah, it's
now,
freeing that you
yeah,
can't change anything now that it's just out.
yeah, and like I said, I originally started the album just to make it for myself, and I
Right.
wanted to make music I love. So it's kind of, it's nice to listen to it now, just listen it, not working on it.
Yeah,
But I think I have to take a long, long break so I can at some point hear it like with fresh ears.
yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, I know it's been talked about in other episodes lately, I think, but I'm just gonna shout out the great compilation album we did at the
Yeah,
Melkos server, and I think uh, it's called "You Meet in a Tavern," and you can find it in Work Gnome Records bandcamp.
yeah, that's something I had in my notes, but we hit so many other topics that didn't come in. But you contributed "Old Roads, New Friends" to that, and
Yeah.
that's just such a good track. It's all the fun, lively energy that I associate with your full length album, but in somewhat of a different context because of this, like the shared theme for the compilation.
Hmm. And well, that's one track I feel I didn't put the 90%, mostly because, well, I didn't um, run out of time, but it was kind like last moment.
Yeah, working with
So
the deadline's different than
yeah,
working on your own time for sure.
so but
It's
yeah,
an awesome track though. It's so good.
thank
I
you.
think it's track 8 maybe,
No, I don't
but it
remember.
has the band name Runesong in it
Mm,
for the fans listening. Oh no, track 10, Old Roads New Friends.
no. But yeah,
Highly recommend.
the reason I wanted to talk about it just for to promote it because
Yeah.
all the money goes to donation towards Red Cross for Ukraine. So everyone should just check out the album from
Yeah.
Webno Records. There are I'm not sure if there's still this pre-orders going for the cassette, but there should be. Uh, even if you don't get the pre-order, there's cassettes left afterwards as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if the pre-order is out of time, then there were extras ordered is my understanding.
Mm,
We're doing this, I think, what, March 24th, and throughout the month of March is kind of the setting up phase of the release, and then cassettes will
yeah.
come out after that. So, yeah, like, like Tony said, it's all going to the International Red Cross, and it's a really cool piece of work for a really cool cause. It's a ton. It's got 14 different projects on it,
Mm. Really great
all really
artists.
cool. Yeah, really great artists that all put in hard work. Very conceptually tied. And yeah, that's at wheregnomerecords.bandcamp.com. You can find it. It's called "You Meet in a Tavern" by Melkor's Dungeon. Yeah, anything else that you'd like to shout out before we head out? I know, of course, you're runesong.bandcamp.com. Is your Instagram, is it just Runesong?
Runesong music.
Runesong Music. Okay. Do you
And
have anything else that you'd like to link or shout out or anything like that?
well, of course, you should. Everyone should just check out all the cool. Uh, I don't know if we have like any place you can find uh, all the artists from the Melker server, but mm, from the if you go to the compilation album and check the artists from there, you can get into many really good releases.
Definitely, yeah,
So
yeah. And if people are interested in this server we're talking about, there's just a fun Dungeon Synth Discord chat. I know there's a link on my Bandcamp on cursebitten.bandcamp.com. I think I'm not sure where else they are, but there's everyone's welcome. It's a fun, very positive, welcoming spot to talk about music and learn a little, make some friends.
yeah, it's a great place. And besides music, there's lots of talk from like games and books and
Yeah,
birds, of course.
yeah, a lot of birds, maybe overwhelmingly like 50% bird talk, which is great. It's funny how like everyone in the community is also really into nature and birding and outdoor stuff. I really love it.
That's true. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't know. I think like I could of course talk for hours, but this is probably a good spot to stop.
sure. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. This was such a cool, I don't know, cool look into how you make music and how the album came about and everything like that. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really great.
All right. Thanks so much. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye bye.
Sup, friends? That was Toni from Runesong, and I had such a nice time chatting there. Like they said towards the end, we talked so much, and I feel like I still had a ton of questions that I could have dove into. Yeah, that was just such a nice, compelling conversation. As we said at the end of the show, you can find Runesong's debut album, For the Forgotten Spirit, at runesong.bandcamp.com, and it's absolutely worth checking out. It's really one of my favorites that's been released. Runesong's also on Instagram. That's at Runesong Music, all one word. Yeah, and then Toni also plugged the charity compilation that we both took part in with a group of friends. That one's called You Meet in a Tavern, and you can find it at wheregnomerecords.bandcamp.com. Tapes are for sale there, and all of the profits are going to the International Red Cross to offer aid in the war in Ukraine. So yeah, it would be really great, of all things, if the listeners maybe check that one out. In Trev news, as always, you can listen to the other episodes of this podcast, as well as my music under Castbitten, all on YouTube or wherever you'd stream podcast and music. So places like Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcast, all of that. I also have music on cursebitten.bandcamp.com, and both Castbitten and Castbitten merch can be found there as well. And then if you want to keep up with myself and with my projects, you can always just check out Castbitten_ on Instagram. Alright, that's all I've got for now. Thanks a ton to everyone who listens. I really appreciate your time and your attention. And thanks a ton to Toni for hopping on and for being such a great guest. Alright, take care everyone. Get out of here.